Yeah. Give me a short endorsed for my podcast called Woke by Accident. It is a weekly chat about social topics impacting the culture. Yeah. Give me a short endorsed for my podcast called Woke by Accident. It is a weekly chat about social topics impacting the culture.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Woke by Accident podcast, a weekly chat about socially conscious topics impacting the culture. Welcome. I'm Jen, your host, and we have another great episode for you today. We took last week off to acknowledge the 4th of July and America's 250. I wanted to share a little bit about that as we reflect on the celebration of America's 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. We also pause to reflect on the freedom that we are so grateful for and the reality that freedom is not always felt equally, accessibly to everyone. The year is already halfway over, which is hard to believe. Yet we keep moving forward, learning from one another, learning from our communities, learning from stories, news stories that remind us to stay aware, stay grounded, and stay human. So today we want to hold space for cases like the tragic situation regarding Nolan Wells, which reminds us of similar stories, which we'll touch on a few stories that still leave families and communities searching for clarity, accountability, and answers. Those are the kinds of stories that make you think how fragile life really is, how important transparency is, and how often people are left with more questions than comfort. And that same lesson shows up in the choices that we make online and especially with content creators. So there's a story, or two stories involving young Black content creators and decisions that led to a particular outcome that I did want to touch on because it really struck me. And it may seem like something simple to some, but I thought it was, worth highlighting for further consideration and further conversation that, you may want to discuss in your circle. So sometimes the lesson is about trust. Sometimes it's about pressure. And sometimes it's about what happens when the world is watching, when people are still trying to figure things out in real time. So that's our conversation for today. We're going to talk about freedom, responsibility, trust, and reminders that come from real life, the kind of life or the kind that make you want to slow down, pay attention, and think a little deeper about what we see, what we assume, and what we choose to learn from. So the first one that we want to talk about will be Nolan Wells. But before we do that, let's do a little transition moment. If we can do that. Okay, here's a little transition. Hey guys, this is Jen. I am the host and creator of Woke by Accident podcast, a weekly chat about socially conscious topics impacting the culture. Excited to be attending the 7th annual Afros and Audio Podcast Festival in Baltimore, Maryland. So thank you for tuning in and have a fabulous day. All right, that was a little moment from when we attended the final and 7th Afros and Audio Podcast Festival in Baltimore, Maryland. Good times were had there. And so we filmed that in Baltimore. So that was a little transition. Welcome in. And yes, it's the first story that we want to touch on is about Nolan Wells. You may say, who was Nolan Wells? Nolan Xavier Wells was an 18-year-old native of Ocean Springs, Mississippi, remembered by his family and teammates as a special soul with a kind heart. He was known for his vibrant smile, sense of humor, his constant willingness to uplift and cheer on those around him. He was a student athlete attending Southwest Mississippi Community College, where he played as a wide receiver on the school's football team. This tragic story started with a celebration, great plans for celebrating the 4th of July weekend. He had plans and went on a weekend holiday trip with a group of friends, and they traveled by boat from a private dock in Ocean Springs out to Horn Island, which is a popular barrier island located about 10 miles off the Mississippi Gulf Coast, and is accessible by a boat. So very, very short distance that he went for this trip. And so he was, it started off as a disappearance. He was last seen on July 4th around 3:00, wearing his swimming trunks and black sunglasses. And it's a lot of confusion after that part. It's reported that he was separated from the friends. The friends returned to the mainland land later that afternoon, and Nolan was not on that boat. Authorities later stated that Nolan chose to remain on the island under the assumption that he would get a ride back later. There's talk that he was talking to a girl and he hung back. There's talk that he didn't have his phone. There's all these kind of inconsistencies that have been reported. Now, his mother, Christine Wansley, contacted authorities. I think she had made posts about Nolan not returning. And then, the news that we did not want shortly came Monday morning on the 6th, indicating that they had discovered a body. And so that's just kind of the nuts and bolts of what happened, in case those are not familiar. But it just, aside from this tragic, scenario where, someone so young lost their life, there's a lot of conversations about going out in groups as a person of color, where you're the only person of color, and being that only, in these particular circles. A lot of, even a good friend of mine posted about that, and, that their mother, discouraged them from going out in a scenario where they would be, and I just wonder, was that commonplace, or has that shifted and changes with over time? Because I know, like in college, we did it all the time. I went to a PWI, and I can remember first, second night up there, everybody, the black girls and the white girls, were like, let's go to the club. And everybody went out clubbing together, and it wasn't any concern of, being ditched and left. I mean, obviously, just going to a venue, and people have turned up, unalive from going out in scenarios like that, but we did it all the time and didn't think about it. So I just wonder, has something shifted and changed where people of color don't feel safe in these circles? And I know, guy friends at PWIs who went home with their non-melanated roommate, and for Thanksgiving, and went back to enjoy their family and things like that, of people of a different race, and you were fine. So I don't know if something along the way changed. But we do want to acknowledge our chat. Welcome in, guys. We do have a comment from Miss Denise earlier. We appreciate you coming in ahead, indicating that this is a great topic. Thank you for that. Denise at Heal, Empower, Release. And we also have Brother Ed. Peace and admiration, Jen. Thank you for the comment. We appreciate you for tapping in, looking at 3 little stories today. The first one being about Nolan Xavier Wells, who tragically lost his life over this holiday weekend, as we were talking about celebrating America's 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, and this time of celebration that we were supposed to be having, that this young man, was attempting to have, and then his life was tragically cut short. and a lot of confusion and unanswered questions about what happened to him. But just wanted to kind of pose the concerns that a lot of content creators and just people on TikTok and online threads and such have been talking about, being discouraged of your children, or maybe when you were growing up, if you were discouraged of being the only person of color, not to go off in circles where you're the only one. And I just, looking back on my life, I can remember people doing it all the time, especially on the college scene, just like this young man. It's a holiday weekend, I'm being mentioned, going to a PWI initially, and going to the club with white girls and black girls together, and everything turned out okay. It's just like, did that concern of your safety change at some point where we didn't feel safe being the only one? I know guy friends I was sharing that went back home, out of town with their college roommates and things like that for the whole weekend, or even spring break or something like that, and things were okay. So I guess, I feel like the deeper lesson is that friends need to have a little more accountability for each other and watch each other's back, have each other's back. If you go together, you leave together. Why did they not watch out for him? Yes, he's a young man, and eight 18 years old, but still, if you guys are friends and you, especially, you're more than 10 miles away from home, it would have been nice if someone could have looked out for him a little bit better, or, gave a call to his people ahead of time. Hey, something's not right. I guess it just depends on how, the expectations and comfortability you set with, with your children. And so it's something to think about. All right. Definitely our hearts and prayers go to the family of Nolan Wells. Online, his mother social media has links to how you can support the family. They are looking for support. It looks like they have connected with Benjamin Crump for legal representation, and we just wish the best for them and hope that they can get through this time and get the questions to those many questions that they have. Definitely really sad case. All right, thank you for sharing, allowing me to share in that. I did want to mention that this case feels eerily similar to a case from 2018. A African American woman, Tamala Horsford, died after attending an overnight.
I'm not sure what you're trying to edit.
Oh, that's Siri. Okay. Keep the phone. So we were talking about a prior case from 2018 with Tamala Horsford. Okay, and this is a Black woman who died attending an overnight house party in Georgia. Her death was ruled accidental, but the case continued to draw suspicion and just a lot of unanswered questions. And these were like a house party full of football moms. All their children had played together, and they were kind of just having like a mom's night, summer party, if you will. And, just a really tragic turn of events went from just adult mom sleepover to this woman losing her life, and unanswered questions. I know her husband, really had a lot of presence online, asking a lot of questions, and it just oddly, they just shut the case up like it's an accident, and they didn't do a thorough investigation. Let's see. We have a comment we do want to share. This is informative. Jen, such a tragic ordeal. So many questions, not answers, for sure. And it's this, you just wonder, like, will they not give their full attention because this is someone of color? Like, why can't we, really get to the bottom of what's happened. There's questions about the cell phone and things like that. Yeah, we just, really wish the best for this family. If you're just tuning in, welcome in. This is Woke by Accident. I am the host and creator, Jen. And we have three stories concerning young people that we want to touch and share on this evening. So we first talked about Nolan Wells, who tragically lost his life celebrating the holiday weekend, going out with a group of friends. And we had a conversation about, as a person of color, do we have concerns about being the only person of color in a group of Black people? Do you advise your children to be careful? Do you dissuade them? I've heard a lot of talk about having those concerns. I just wonder what people think about that. I can remember, doing things in mixed circles and being fine, going out back in the college age, and going to a nightclub and coming back, or even riding home for the weekend from another city back with young ladies of another race, and it was fine, and everyone, looked out and made it there safely. But I mean, I guess times have just really changed. So, you just really wonder about that. So moving on, let's see. So this next story is a little more lighthearted. This creator was a TikTok. Let's see. I want to show you a visual if I can. Let me try to pull this up. But the nuts and bolts is that this prominent, or I guess the woman has kind of blown up on TikTok sharing this story. I think initially her creative landscape wasn't so large, but she's a Black woman that worked in IT, and she eventually lost her job after a post went viral, and it was about warning a future terminated employee, which I guess she considered to be an acquaintance. And so I wanted to talk about that because, I've known people in that scenario where you have information ahead, and, it's just kind of a accountability thing and a judgment call. And she made, unfortunately, a poor choice and decision that led to her losing her job. So let me see if I can share this image. Let's see. And that's the accountability. We've talked about that before, how accountability really presents itself with being a content creator. Okay, so here it is. I'm not going to play what she's talking about, but I do want you to see her face. She goes by Tiffany 2.0 official on TikTok. And this post literally got up into the millions and such. It was the week of right actually around Juneteenth is when it happened. But this is what she looks like. Her name is Tiffany, and she proudly shares her story. I think it's 9 parts of the story to follow along, where she talks about being an IT manager and warning a friend, someone that she referred to as a friend, but it ended up being the case that warning the friend didn't go well. She's making posts leading up to her warning it, and it's almost like she could have just played this a different way. Perhaps if she would have posted after the thing was over and done with, but it's almost like she gave proprietary information away, which she did. She kind of broke policy. It's if you're going to do something like that, why share that on social media? I think that's where she kind of went wrong. If you are going to warn someone and break policy, why show your face literally and talk about it, and give out details of the industry. Certainly probably figured out the company within 30 minutes of her talking about it, because people. So she lost her job because she violated policy. She warned an employee that they were going to be terminated. Okay, because she bragged about or she shared as being an IT manager, she sets up the access and then she also turns off access. Okay. And so um with her, getting that information, or hey, we have got onboarding coming on, or we've got offboarding going on. And so she used that information in her position to warn someone and break policy. And they even told her this is confidential information, and not to share. And not only did she share it, but she shared it to the person who was not supposed to know about it. And it's almost like, what was the point, so I think, ultimately she lost her job, which she shares, and, she gives a really big reaction. She's upset and all of that. And then now she's kind of pivoting into now she's going to do like the content creation thing fully and, not do the IT thing, and it's just interesting, that whole conversation of accountability and, yeah, accountability. And it's, like your job, like you really broke policy. Like they could even take it further if they wanted to for, breaking policy. And you just have to move a little smarter than that. I always think like, if I was in this case, would I do something like that? No, I'm going to follow policy. I need my bread. You know what I mean? I need my job, right? I need all of the jobs. I need all of my hustles, my side thing. And I don't think I would intentionally do something to jeopardize my financial picture in this way, and if you are going to do something like that, you got to move a little smarter, right? Like not post about it, not post about it until after the fact, So I think people are such in a hurry to be the first one, even, with the news and media, we're the first ones. You're getting the story first, like it's okay not being the first one, right? Because you may have the story that is more conclusive and more detailed. And, I'm looking at all the stories. You may be the one that resonates with everyone. So, being first is not always the jam. Or I guess, it's a value thing. It's a value call. So I thought that was interesting. If you peruse TikTok, this is like the week of Juneteenth, that there's like 9, 10, 12 posts about this. And so it was, quite a big deal. So thank you for allowing me to share on that one. This last one is really recent and kind of hits with the younger crowd, but I just really, the emotion involved. I was like, okay, I've got to, I want to talk about this one. Let's see. And this one is a young Black man. And so this one here, young Black man who is a very popular and successful Twitch streamer. Okay, yes, Black people are on Twitch doing the darn thing. I am a Twitch streamer too. So, with my reselling, I share my streams to Twitch. So Twitch is a platform for live streams. Some people are playing video games, some people are just talking, some people are just like follow me and as I cook or do my life, or just follow me and watch me hang out with my friends. And so people can monetize and pay into you and support you. And this guy does like millions of dollars. Okay, so that's just a little background on this guy. So his name is Your Rage on Twitch. And so he's taking it down off of his page, but it was so popular, it went so viral that other people are talking about it a lot. So let me find my notes. Okay, so this guy, he goes by Your Rage. He had a story that he shared about accusing his best friend, and the other guy in this picture is his best friend, who stole money from him after giving him access to his accounts in his life. And so I wanted to have this discussion about, being portrayed, being betrayed by a good friend, and how people perceive you on social media, and kind of make a determination about you, even being a friend in your circle, but just seeing what you post and they kind of make their mind up about you. And so yeah, this is what happened in this case. So this guy, he has a post about how he spent his first million. Like, this guy makes millions of dollars. And so what happened with this guy, he went live and talked about how his friend, his accountant, informed him that he, this great amount of money, which I think was between 50,000 initially, and it ended up being like 100,000, was missing. And so who had access? This guy. So he let his childhood friend stay in his house while he was on vacation. He's supposed to watch his dogs and lizard and all the things, and come to find out, and he did it in small increments, like 2,000 here, 5,000, so it just wasn't noticeable initially. So it took a while for him to kind of like really figure it out. And then when he's going back, he sees the guy like flashing money on socials and things like that. And then he confronts him on live. And so this is the guy, like, they literally, both of them were crying, tears running down their face. And I just never, seen, and this is like not fake. This is not, this is real life. This is someone streaming this. And I think he was upset because for one, the betrayal, the mistrust, and then two, the money, which is a significant large amount of money. Yes, the guy has money, but that's not the point. Even if he had, a big bucket of money, if it's not yours, you don't take it, right? And then if he's your friend, if you express to him that you need help and support, he should help you, right? And so for you to just snake someone and do something underhandedly is not cool. And it just makes, and so that's why I wanted to just, pose that, have you lost trust with a friend over a money situation? Have you, someone that was in a part of the circle, the inner circle, broke trust like that, and kind of did it in a, sneaky way? Because I think that's what hurts more. So, and I think that he got so emotional because he just, keeps showing up like everything's okay, smiling, hanging out, and then knowing that you did this thing and, no accountability. And when you're confronted, it's like, okay, yeah, I did it, but well, you gave me the car. Well, like, would you, like almost like turning the blame back on you for trusting them. Yeah, I gave it to you to take care of things when I wasn't here, not for you to go have a shopping spree, right? And so, has this the question of the day? Has this ever happened to you? So for me, no one has done anything with a large financial amount of money towards me. I mean, I've gotten snaked over like concert tickets. I'm lucky enough where it hasn't been like no big amount of money, no big bread, but I've gotten snaked over some concert tickets to a particular event. We ain't gonna say the who and the what and the why, but we get, life goes on. The beat marches on. The beat goes on. I feel like we did an episode actually when Samaza was here about internet scams and internet scams, and I feel like one, I don't know if I shared at the time, was a Cash App scam, and I feel like someone I know kind of put me in the mix of a Cash App scam without giving away whatever, but there's like a text line in Cash App where you can write a little message right after you get so many characters. And so it was a situation where someone who I thought I knew was communicating through the little message thing. And now we know that there's scams of people, like they'll take, the fact that you like your granddaughter's voice and say, oh, I need money or I need help, or and the same thing can happen with the text box of Cash App. The same thing can happen with a PayPal invoice. Oh, this isn't right. We'll call this number. Oh, you need help. So we know now that phishing is a part of these scams that we need to be aware of. And even recently, someone who was kind of like in my virtual circle. There's friends who are in your immediate circle, and then there's some people you kind of know casually virtually, right? So someone in that circle reached out, and I couldn't tell if it was a scam or a bam or that person. So I just shut it down because it's not worth it. You know what I mean? If I don't know you like in my for real life and you don't have my for real phone number, then it's I cannot. Like, I don't have it like that. Like, actually, I just shared a post where I think it said something like, "You see me out here living my best life," and then it cuts to Jennifer Lewis saying, "And don't ask me for no money." So I know I'm laughing at my own courting joke, but no, you have to see it. It's kind of funny. The actress Jennifer Lewis has a little audio bio saying like, "And don't ask me for no money," and then someone posts them like on a trip or something, and I'm like, "I'm out here living my best life, and don't ask me for no money." So basically, it's like, this guy is seen living his best life, being a Twitch streamer that does well, or maybe you are just a regular person living your best life, and then people get their own idea about who you are socially because they see you doing X, Y, and Z. And so they may think it's cool to, run a scam or, try to not present themselves on the up and up with you or take advantage is what it kind of boils down to. People and entities will try to take advantage, and you have to really be vigilant and aware of these things. And so that's why we have these conversations. So I really feel sorry for the guy who lost his money, and there's ways that he can recoup. He may have to file a report and things like that. But what's the greater loss is this years of friendship, right? So I just, I can wonder about that. And you just really had to see the video of both of them like crying and screaming and yelling over this mistrust and betrayal, which, people, shed blood over things like this. So they kept it, without bloodshed, but the emotions were high. And so I, can relate to that. Like I said, I've been in some smaller scale scenarios where, you betrayed or, ran into a scam, and it's not fun. It's not a fun thing at all. So definitely, wanted to share that. I thought that was interesting. And this was that really recent, like a couple days ago. All right. So at this time, we will conclude our episode. We did touch on our theme today was trust, loss, and accountability. These things are, really important as we go through this thing called life. And so we will share them with you. We took last week off. We are considering changing the schedule. I would like to move to Thursdays from Wednesdays and maybe show up about twice a month instead of weekly. So please look for the bookmarks on our upcoming shows. And we thank you for tuning in. The audio episode will be coming soon. We hope the episode left you feeling enlightened and had you look at some things. Real change, it starts with collective awareness. So if you found the value in what you've heard, we ask that you share this episode with your network. Your advocacy is what keeps this moving forward. And so we look forward to diving back into these crucial topics and matters. And we thank you again for tuning in. Let's see. Let's acknowledge the chat before we conclude. Brother Ed, great perspective. Thank you for the kind words. Every week. Yeah, we have to use our resources wisely. So I don't think every week makes sense in this space of, doing it singularly and not having, a slot of guests on the books right now. So I'm still trying to catch up on audio episodes too. But I do want to have a presence out here and maintain the platform. It is important to me. So the plan is to show up at least twice a month, and maybe I was looking at like the first and third Thursdays. So please make sure you follow and subscribe so that you are notified when the content is out there. And we also are looking at not doing a live format too, so that we can stack and put the content out there readily accessible for you. And so it doesn't need to be live per se. So we could use some more features and have overlays and things like that in the non-live format. So that is a thought too. So we appreciate you guys, and we will see you next time. But thank you so much for the ones that tuned in, and audio episode coming soon. Take care.